Welcome back to Narrations. Tonight's story is soft, pastel, handwritten, a love story built from secret letters, hallway glances, and feelings that were never meant to be mailed. This is to all the boys I've loved before. It's about first love. About embarrassment. About pretending, until it becomes real. Lara Jean Covey doesn't fall in love halfway. She falls in love privately. In her bedroom, soft pink walls, fairy lights, stacks of vintage romance novels. Lara Jean creates entire emotional universes inside her imagination. She doesn't need dates or declarations. She needs a feeling, a glance, a moment of possibility. And when that possibility becomes too overwhelming, she writes a letter. The letters are never meant to be sent. They are confessions without consequences. Each one begins honestly. She writes about how her heart started racing. About the exact moment she realized she liked them. About how she knows it won't work. But how she needed to feel it fully once before letting it go. When she's finished, she seals the envelope, writes their full name carefully, and places it inside a teal hatbox her mother once gave her. 5 letters. 5 boys. 5 chapters she believed were safely closed. Lara Jean's life is quiet and full in its own way. After their mother passed away, the Covey sisters grew closer in that way families do when something irreplaceable disappears. Margot, the oldest, became structured and protective. Lara Jean became sentimental and romantic. Kitty, the youngest, became sharp and observant, watching everything, missing nothing. The house smells like baking and fabric softener. The kitchen is always slightly messy in a comforting way. They watch old movies together, debate recipes, tease each other about crushes. Margot is Lara Jean's anchor. So when Margot leaves for college in Scotland, the house shifts in subtle ways. The silence stretches longer. Lara Jean feels untethered, not just because her sister is gone, but because Margot's presence always gave her emotional stability. Especially when it came to Josh. Josh Sanderson lives next door. He's been part of their life forever. He dated Margot for years, stable, easy, comfortable. Before he became Margot's, he was Lara Jean's first quiet crush. She wrote him a letter to release the feeling. She believed that meant she'd moved on. But when Margot and Josh break up right before Margot leaves, everything feels delicate. Josh is suddenly just Josh again. Not off limits. Not claimed. And Lara Jean doesn't know what to do with that shift. Then the unthinkable happens. The letters are mailed. All 5. No warning. No preparation. One morning, Peter Kavinsky approaches her in the hallway holding an envelope she recognizes instantly. Her handwriting. Her seal. Panic floods her body. Peter is everything Lara Jean is not outwardly. Popular. Athletic. Effortlessly confident. The kind of boy who leans casually against lockers and makes eye contact without flinching. Her letter to him was the most vulnerable. She wrote about middle school spin-the-bottle games. About how he once stood up for her when someone teased her. About how she admired the way he made people laugh. She never meant for him to read it. Peter doesn't mock her. He teases her lightly, yes. But there's curiosity in his expression too. He isn't offended. He isn't dismissive. He's intrigued. At the same time, Josh receives his letter. And suddenly, Lara Jean's carefully compartmentalized world explodes. Her crushes are no longer tidy memories. They are live wires. To escape the immediate awkwardness with Josh, who now looks at her differently, Lara Jean impulsively kisses Peter in the hallway. It's chaotic. Desperate. Meant to send a message. And it works. Peter sees opportunity. He recently broke up with his girlfriend, Jen, socially powerful, intimidating, strategic. Jen doesn't like losing. Peter wants to show her he's moved on. Lara Jean wants Josh to stop analyzing her. So Peter proposes a deal. They fake date. Publicly. Convincingly. No real feelings. Lara Jean hesitates. But pretending feels safer than being exposed. They establish rules. Hand-holding in hallways. Lunch together. Instagram posts. Texting late enough to look believable. The first public display feels awkward. Peter laces his fingers through hers. Lara Jean's heart races. Not because it's fake, but because it feels surprisingly real. At a party, Peter dramatically comes to her defense when Jen makes a cutting remark. He drapes his jacket over her shoulders. Spins her under string lights. Whispers reassurance close enough that she feels it in her chest. It's all part of the plan. Except it doesn't feel like acting. Peter starts texting her goodnight. He remembers that Kitty likes Korean yogurt drinks. He notices when Lara Jean is overwhelmed and steers conversations gently away. He teases her about her baking but eats everything she makes. And Lara Jean, who has always loved boys safely from a distance, finds herself standing in something tangible. Then comes Halloween. Lara Jean decides, for once, not to dress softly. She chooses Lara Croft, bold, strong, unlike her usual pastel cardigans. She walks into school feeling slightly braver than usual. Peter is dressed as Spider-Man. When he sees her, he pauses. "You didn't tell me your costume." There's mock offense in his voice. He wanted to match. The realization lands unexpectedly sweet. They argue playfully, about coordination, about expectations, then end up racing down the hallway, laughing uncontrollably. For a moment, the world shrinks to just them. Later, Peter slips a note into her locker. "I'll pick you up at 7. Simple. Direct. Intimate. It's not a grand speech. But it feels chosen. And that's what scares Lara Jean most. Because this time, there's no letter to write and hide away. This time, the feelings are happening in real time. And she can't seal them in a hatbox. For a while, pretending feels easier than honesty. Peter and Lara Jean settle into their fake relationship with surprising rhythm. He waits for her by her locker. She sits with him at lunch. They text constantly, memes, small updates. "What are you doing?" Messages that feel unnecessary but comforting. At first, Lara Jean tells herself she's just playing a role. But roles start to blur when routines feel natural. Peter begins showing up in ways that aren't required by the deal. He helps Kitty with homework when he comes over. He stays longer than he needs to. He looks at Lara Jean not just to perform affection, but to check in. Still, Jen lingers. She watches from a distance with sharp awareness. Jen and Peter share history. Years of inside jokes, shared vacations, long-standing social power. Their connection doesn't evaporate just because they broke up. Lara Jean senses it. The way Peter's expression softens when Jen is upset. The way he defends her out of habit. The way he hesitates before saying certain things. And insecurity begins to grow quietly. Lara Jean has always loved safely from afar. Being inside a relationship exposes her to comparison. Jen is poised, confident, socially strategic. Lara Jean feels softer. Smaller. Temporary. The fracture widens at a ski trip. A party. A hot tub. Alcohol and blurred boundaries. Lara Jean, uncomfortable and slightly overwhelmed, retreats, and Peter follows her. He climbs into the hot tub beside her, steam rising around them, laughter echoing in the background. The moment feels intimate, not performative. Peter leans in close, brushing a strand of hair away from her face. For the first time, their closeness feels undeniable. And then... it's recorded. Someone captures the moment. The video spreads quickly. Cropped. Misleading. Suggestive. By Monday, the hallway feels different. Whispers follow Lara Jean. Phones flash with screenshots. The intimacy she experienced privately becomes public spectacle. For someone who treasures emotional privacy, the humiliation feels unbearable. Peter insists it wasn't intentional. He says it's harmless. But Lara Jean feels exposed, not just physically, but emotionally. The argument that follows is raw. She accuses him of still being emotionally tethered to General. He accuses her of not trusting him. Beneath it all lies something more fragile. They both stopped pretending. And neither knows how to handle real feelings. Lara Jean pulls away. She tells herself she knew this would happen, that fake relationships don't become fairy tales. That she was foolish to let it feel real. Peter tries reaching out. He shows up at her house. Calls. Waits. But Lara Jean, wounded and embarrassed, retreats into silence. She turns to Margot for clarity. Margot, steady as ever, asks the question Lara Jean has avoided. Do you love him? The answer is immediate. Yes. Not because he's popular. Not because he defended her publicly. But because he noticed her privately. Because he chose her in small moments, in locker notes, in hallway laughter, in quiet rides home. Meanwhile, Peter begins understanding his own mistake. He realizes that comfort with Jen was habit, not love. That loyalty doesn't mean lingering attachment. That he hurt Lara Jean not by caring about Jen, but by not setting boundaries clearly. He writes her a letter. Handwritten. No performance. He explains himself simply, that she wasn't a distraction, that the pretending stopped for him long ago, that he likes her for who she is, not for how she makes him look. Lara Jean reads it in her bedroom, surrounded by fairy lights and the teal hatbox that started everything. This time, there is no letter to hide. She goes to him. Not dramatically. Not running through airports. Just walking through snow, heart steady, ready to speak without rehearsal. They meet outside under soft winter light. The conversation isn't grand. It's honest. Peter admits he was careless. Lara Jean admits she was afraid of being second choice. They stand there, two teenagers realizing that love requires risk they can't control with contracts. When Peter kisses her this time, it isn't part of a deal. It isn't to prove anything. It's quiet. Chosen. To all the boys I've loved before isn't just about mailed letters. It's about stepping out from behind fantasy and letting yourself be seen in real time. Sometimes love isn't written perfectly in advance. Sometimes it's messy, public, terrifying, and worth it anyway. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this narration, please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next story.